Hello, this is Pete, or Kenshin1913, along with
Mom.
And this is another Cooking with Kenshin1913. What are we making today?
Today we're making Italian wedding soup. We have gotten a few requests, so it's time to show you.
Yeah, one of my former co-workers has been asking this forever.
Okay, so this is going to be the start of our Italian wedding soup, and the first thing that we're going to actually do is to make the little mini meatballs that go into the soup. That's kind of the famous thing that goes into this soup, are these mini meatballs. And what we're going to do is take half a pound of ground chopped meat and a half a pound of ground pork, not sausage, so this has no flavoring. It's just plain ground pork. We're going to add our own ingredients in here to make the meatballs. We're going to shape them and fry them, and then I'll show you how to make the actual soup part of this. I'm just going to walk you through as I'm putting my ingredients in it. So we're going to add some salt to the mixture. We're going to add some pepper, ground pepper.
Yeah, and this is a soup that we make occasionally. This isn't one of those like go-to soups that we usually do because of the the meatballs that you have to put in, but usually it's a good soup to have during the winter if you want to get a little fancy.
A lot of people make this near the holidays, near Christmas or Thanksgiving, to have as one of the dishes.
One of the 7,000 dishes
yes.
you have when you're in an Italian house.
I just added
Parsley.
some parsley. I'm going to add some grated cheese. Probably about a quarter of a cup. I'm going to add some breadcrumbs. Again, about a quarter of a cup. And then this is where you're going to have to judge a little bit with the egg. I'm going to start off with one egg. If the mixture is too thick and not combining well, I'll add another one. So now it's time to get your hands dirty.
Yeah, you know what's one thing a lot of people have been wondering about that actually I have been too, is like, can you use a stand mixer to make meatballs?
I guess you could.
And the answer is probably. Maybe we'll have to do a video on that. I do have a recipe to make meatballs, but they're in the oven. You can make them large and in charge, and they come out really good. Usually we use them for when we're making meatball subs. You bake these giant meatballs and then put them on the subs.
Okay, so now we're all mixed up.
You only need the one?
Yeah, I only needed the one. It was fine.
How would you know if you needed a second?
It would be too dry and it wouldn't come together like this. So the next thing I'm going to do is to get my frying pan, put a little bit of vegetable oil in it, and I'll show you about the size of these little meatballs to fry up. We have our frying pan. We have a little bit of oil.
Vegetable oil for this one. And we're just going to let it get up to temp. And my mom wants to show you the meatballs here. Now with the Italian wedding soup, you're going to make them kind of teeny and tiny. Whoops. There we go. Yeah.
So some people will take like a melon ball scooper to make them all exactly even. I've never done that. I just eyeball it and roll them.
Yeah. Couple things I want to ask you, Mom. Breadcrumbs. Panko, could you use panko?
You could.
All right, we're adding the meatballs. And yeah, I've seen recipes where you've literally just dropped them in and they cooked in the sauce or in the soup.
In the soup. You can do that. You would make small little meatballs like this. You're going to drop them into the boiling soup, and they'll just cook like that. They won't have any brown on them.
Yeah.
The same way that you can do that with regular meatballs into your sauce.
Right. Yeah, we do that a lot with our sauce. One thing I do want to mention as well is
So as you can see, you're making them very tiny. This ended up being a pound of meat, you know, because we did a half a pound of each. So we're going to get quite a few meatballs out of this. The other thing that you can do with this is that you can make your meatballs like this.
ahead of time.
You can roll them and put them in your freezer on a cookie tray, freeze them, and then throw them in a plastic freezer Ziploc bag for the next time you make soup.
So we're just going to continue to fry the meat balls. They'll cook for about a few minutes on each side. You just roll them around, and you should have a ton of them. And then we'll come back and we'll show you how the soup gets started.
Our meatballs are done. I guess there's probably about 40 meatballs or so in there. I'm not sure. I didn't count them all. So we took them out after they fried. I put them on a piece of towel paper to soak up any excess oil. What we're going to do, first thing is, this is homemade chicken stock. And how I made this is very, very easily done. We happen to have one of those roaster chickens that you get from the deli at the store, and so we ate the chicken, and all of the skin and the bones we kept to the side. I put it in a big stock pot, boiled it down for about maybe an hour, and I was able to get 2.5 quarts of stock with a little bit, and you can see some little extra chicken bits from like the wings and so forth. Now, if you don't want to make your own chicken stock, you can most definitely use chicken stock from, you know, the store-bought one. You can use broth, or you can use the stock. Stock is a little bit more hearty, so I would suggest that. So the next thing that we're going to do, so that's to the side. I previously cut up a cup of carrots, onion, and celery. And
1 cup of each.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I have 4 cloves of garlic over here on the side that I've chopped up into little bits. We're gonna, there's extra virgin olive oil in this pan, in Dutch oven. We're gonna let that heat up a little bit, and then I'm gonna throw in these vegetables. Okay, I'm gonna just dump this in.
Yeah, so Mom, here's the $50,000 question. Why is it called Italian wedding soup?
That I don't know. So we're gonna have to do some research on that.
Don't worry, there's going to be a food fact that pops up right here. And then I'll tell you why, hopefully.
So I'm mixing all of this together, and we're gonna let this start to cook a little bit. Maybe, you know, once you hear the sizzling, we'll cook it until maybe the onions are a little bit soft, and then we'll throw in our stock. Okay, I'm going to add a little salt and pepper to this, and the salt will make the vegetables sweat a little bit, so that will help with cooking them down. A little bit of pepper. And then traditionally, what you do with this is you put a small pasta in it. I am going to use Acini pepe, which is a small little pasta that's going to go in there. And then at the very end, you're going to add some spinach, cut up spinach. You can use either frozen spinach, or you can have your fresh spinach. Just put it in and it'll wilt down. Okay, after this has been cooking for about 10 minutes or so, and you can hear it sizzling here, and I keep moving it around because you don't want it to really get browned, but you want to start to get the vegetables, you know, semi-cooked, because then they're going to boil up with the stock anyway. So I'm going to add my garlic, my chopped garlic, because you don't want to add it too early. You don't want it to burn. Smells lovely. I wish we had smell-o-vision.
Yeah, the classic mirepoix of carrots, onions, and celery. And you add a little garlic. Really nice flavor.
One of the things some people will probably say, what is that white rim on the inside of the stock? And that's just when it's refrigerated. That's the oil that's part of the natural oil of the chicken. You don't have to use that if you don't want to, but it does give lots of great flavor.
So that's 1 quart right now. Mm-hmm. She's going to add another quart. And then another half. So what is that, like 10 cups of stock, I think? Because a quart is 4. I don't know. I don't remember. I'll have, you know what? I'll put the measurements underneath.
Now into this, we're going to let this come up to a boil. You can actually add, because this stock was kind of concentrated, you could add a little extra water if you need to. But we're going to let this come up to a boil. Okay, so our soup has come to a boil. It's been boiling for about 5 minutes or so. I'm going to add our pasta. This is a ½ cup. Now, if you had more stock and you know, had more soup, you could add more pasta. But you don't want this to take up, you know, be the main thing in here. So we'll let that continue coming to a boil.
At any point, Mom, do you add the cover to anything?
You could add the cover, and you would lower it a little bit because you don't want it to boil over.
Right. And then how long you let this? You mentioned you let this cook for a few minutes, and then you add the meatballs.
Yep.
All right.
We'll add the meatballs, and then we'll add the spinach last.
All right. So we'll let this boil or cook for another 10 minutes or so.
Yeah. And then as the pasta starts to cook, of course, it absorbs some of the liquid, and the longer it sits in the hot liquid, it'll continue cooking. Okay, so here we are. It's probably been cooking about a ½ hour or so. Yeah, I would think so. But you could see the macaroni is almost totally done. And so we're going to start to add some of our meatballs in here. Because what you should have is at least a couple of meatballs with each spoon that you take.
Yep, back when I was a kid, I never really ate this soup because I would see him and I'd be like, ew, white meatballs, that's gross, what is that?
The what he's talking about white meatballs is, remember I mentioned that you could just take your meatballs, rolled the meat, and just drop them into the hot soup, and they'll cook. So there's not a lot of color to them.
Yeah. And this is a great opportunity if you only part cook the meatballs, that they will finish cooking in the soup. They give it a nice flavor too. I mean, it's pretty good. And if you don't use all the meatballs, like my mom mentioned, you can freeze them and then put them in another soup later.
So we added all of our meatballs in here, so you're going to get a few meatballs with each spoonful. So we let that come back up to a boil, and we're going to add our spinach now in, And I have a package of frozen spinach. But as I mentioned earlier, you can just have some fresh spinach and let it wilt in.
Yep, and this is where the classic green of the Italian wedding soup comes in, and it's just yummy, yummy. And then yeah, you're just gonna let this cook for a few minutes, and then once that's done, your soup's practically all set. And then you can start eating. This is a very hearty soup, lots of goodness in it.
This spinach was a 14-ounce bag. I'm just going to add a tiny bit left. And so if you were adding fresh, you probably, you would add half. You got to judge it to see, because this is what it's supposed to look like. You get a good helping of everything as you're eating.
Yeah, and another thing about this as well that I wanted to mention is, like, obviously if you're cooking it in a bigger pot, like a big stock pot, you could probably fit everything in there, because you'd be more than likely adding more water to the stock to kind of thin it out a little bit, but eventually it'll concentrate back. But yeah, you probably could add all the spinach. But
yeah, now as I mentioned, we had 2.5 quarts of stock. Now we could have added more stock and then added more of everything else.
Right. And this will definitely feed lots of people.
So what we're going to do here now is let this all come to a boil for another 5-10 minutes, and then we can turn it off. So we're all done. Look how lovely that looks. So we're going to get a scoop. A bit more juice.
And that looks lovely.
And I'm going to add just a little bit of shredded Parmesan cheese to the top. And there it is.
Lovely. Look at that. Yum. Alright, here is our Italian wedding soup. As much as I can show you. Trust me. It's great. Anyways, you got your meatballs, you got your spinach, you got your peas, your acini pepe, hey Chi. You got your carrots and celery and onions. Just as I remember it. Granted, I haven't had it in a while, but it tastes terrific. And those meatballs really are just a nice little touch to it. But yeah, it's been really good. Got a lot of veggies. Got some chicken. Got some meatballs. Got some spinach. Got all kinds of good stuff. So, thanks, Mom.
You're welcome.
I have been Pete, or Kenshin1913, along with
Mom.
This has been another Cooking with Kenshin1913.
Enjoy and happy eating.